Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and I realized something when I sat down to record this episode. It's the rule of 8. It's the final rule of 8 with Mob Psycho Season 3, Episode 8, and I was like, oh my god, it's the 8th episode! So, as you all know, the rule of 8 stands true that the 8th episode is going to be something good. Whether it's, eventful, whether it's symbolic, whether it gives some insane reveals or plot twists, the 8th episode of any series that is 11 to 13 episodes in total is going to be a good one. And that's the episode that we are on today. And it just so happens that we're trying to make Tome feel better and make some memories while she's still in middle school. We got this new guy that's come onto the scene that's a telepath, and they're going up to this crazy mountain to look for some UFOs. So maybe we'll just get some UFOs. We don't know, right? So I'm really excited. I was like, all right, good deal. We're actually going to get maybe a really, really cool episode. But this season, we're already on the 8th episode. It's starting to hit me that we're nearing the end of Mob Psycho, and I'm getting really sad because usually around this time I'm really excited because it's going to be the climax of the series soon. Like this episode is clearly the turning point. Usually the 8th episode, after the 8th episode, you enter the final act of the series or of the season. And that is going to be the case with Mob Psycho because there's only 12 episodes. So after this, we only have 4 more. And it's started to sink in today. I was like, I'm going to sit down and record episode 8. And then I was like, I only got 4 more after that. Like just a month of Mob Psycho after this. And then I'm done. I mean, I'm going to look at the Reagan one shot, but that's not the same. So I was like, it really hit me today. And I was like, I'm kind of sad. So I'm like, man, I'm not ready to leave Mob Psycho. And so I feel like everybody else is probably in that same boat too. But man, it's just been such a good series. And this season has been very somber and emotional, and it feels like a farewell tour, and I don't know how to feel about it yet, but we're on episode 8, rule of 8. It's going to be a great time, so that's all we can focus on, right? Right? But before we dive into that 8th episode, we do have the Reagan Thirst update. We got some great pieces this week. This one's from a while back. It is a show cuddling Ritsu as a cat in his little mascot cat form. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit sad, but I'm also a bit happy because I went to this website that gives international shipping for Japan proxy items. Like you can order a proxy and pre-order things that are coming out in Japan, and then they will ship them when they come out. So I saw a set of the 4 mascots that we had on our Reagan Thirst update a few weeks ago, and they had the 4 mascot set, and you could buy them, and I was like, I need them. So I bought the little 4 mascots, Ritsu and Mob and Reagan and Sarazawa as the dogs and everything. So it's going to come, it's not going to ship till like June. So I'm not going to get it till like this summer, but I will show you all on Discord, on Twitter when I get them in. They may be in the background of this setup here. They're definitely going to be on my Christmas tree because they have little hanging like keychains from it. So I'm excited for that. But I was so sad because I had in my shopping cart these 2 posters of Reagan and Sarazawa. I thought they looked so badass, and I'm like, I could hang them up on the back wall. Had them in my shopping cart, and then I waited a day or 2, and by the time I went to check out, they were sold out. Sad days. So, internet, if you all out there have access to these posters, and you want to send me a link of how I can order them online, or you want to proxy order them for me, whatever, I will pay you. I want those posters so badly. I was so sad. I was heartbroken. I was like, I wanted those posters so bad of Sarazawa and Reagan. I would have hung them up, and now they're sold out. So maybe they'll come back on sale at some point. I hope so, because I wanted them so badly. I was so distraught when I found out that I couldn't buy them anymore. Sad days. So what can we do though, right? What can we do? But anyway, I really liked that image of show with Ritsu. And then Reagan Thirst update wise, I love this one from Kintrit where Sarazawa like has Reagan in the crook of his neck saying, "Good morning, sir." There's the dimple mug. And he's holding the phone with his, I do that thing that Reagan does all the time. Ergonomically, you're not supposed to do that. It's horrible on your neck, but I find myself doing it all the time. But so sad. But I love that shot of Sarazawa with Reagan like comforting him. Good morning, sir. I just absolutely love it. And then apparently this next set of images was from the Hot Springs episode where it was actually a beach alternate reality. Like they were going to do like an alternate version that was at the beach instead of the snowy hot springs. I'm kind of sad they didn't do it at the beach because like this is really cute, the little shack with Mob holding up the thing there. But I love this. Look at like Sarazawa, and then look at Teru with the Speedo is hilarious, but Teru with the Speedo is hilarious, and then Ritsu with like the geometric pattern shorts. But my favorite is Reagan with those big diving flippers and the snorkel set. Like, absolutely ridiculous. I love that so much. And then we've got this one that's like an alternate like Halloween type thing where Reagan is a like Grim Reaper and he has like the sai and like the axe in his head, and the Mob is like the ghost. And then Teru, why do they want to give Teru's butt with like the hairy butt or the dimples or the acne on his butt? Why are they doing that? But he's like an ogre with the knife stuck in his hair. That's really funny. I do love the little lamp with Dimple coming out of it. Anything with Dimple now is going to make me instantly sad and nostalgic. So there we go. And then I like this one of Ritsu showing the map to Sarazawa. I like that one draws Sarazawa in such casual clothes. Like he has like green sweatpants and like Crocs and just a white shirt. I like Sarazawa just looks so comfy. It's really cool. But yeah, I like that one a lot. And then finally, this image here from Haruto 1214 I'm assuming, I think that's Reagan with the big, like, leaned back with the gangster lean and then the mob mafia coat and the fedora and everything. The shoes, I love the lighting on the shoes. It's just definitely a fine example for our Reagan thirst update. So, very good, very good. But yeah, I'm really excited, y'all. Rule of 8 has not let me down in any anime I've ever watched before, so I don't think it's going to let us down here either. So, in any case, I hope you all enjoy this reaction and discussion. I'm excited, but we've wasted enough time. We're going to dive right into it. So, we're going to start Mob Psycho Season 3, Episode 8. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this. That was the strangest episode of anything I've seen in a long time. It wasn't bad. Rule of 8, you don't know what you're gonna get. But it was like, I was like, did Inukawa like join a harem? Did he father like little kids on an alien race? I was like waiting for there to be little alien hybrids, but what? And then for a second he like became like the aliens, but then he like went back to normal, and what? I feel like, okay, here's the thing. I feel like this episode here we only have 4 episodes left, right? I feel like this was the episode that was like ending one arc before the rest of it begins, right? I feel like after this episode is leading up to finale, because it cut instantly to the preview for the next episode. So I have seen the preview. Tsubomi's moving, which we kind of knew that. She talked about transferring in the last season, but Mob wasn't around to hear about it. She was telling her friends that she was thinking about transferring to like the lemon drop school or whatever it was. So apparently that's going to be a thing. Okay, so we'll talk about that at the end of the episode, but it just feels like, yeah, the whole thing with Tsubomi is going to be our final arc. Because if she's moving, that means Mob's got to confess before she goes. Which that could end up working in Mob's favor, you know? It could end up being a lot of things. I guess we'll go ahead and talk about it before we dive into this episode. Okay, so that could end up being a lot of things. I know that I'm theorizing before we get to the episodes. But yeah, if she's moving, then that could mean a lot of things. Like, on the one hand, you know, it could mean that Mob could confess to her. It wouldn't be awkward. Here's the thing. If he confesses to her and she turns him down, then one of several things can happen. I mean, in real life, if someone's moving away and you confess to them, they'll either be like, yeah, sure, let's go on a date and make it work, right? And we'll just figure it out long distance. But usually what happens when that ends up occurring is that the person's like, oh, I'm sorry, it would be really hard to be long distance and I can't make it work, but thanks. And so I feel like Mob's not going to take that well if that happens, because it's, his first, the first crush he's ever had, and that rejection will be like, ugh. But, but that is part of growing up too. That, part of growing up is that you have those moments where you ask someone out and they can reject you, and you just have to move on. So, and you move forward and you find someone new. And so I don't know if this story is going to go that route, or if they're going to let Tsubomi and Mob date at the end of it. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work, but I don't know how that's going to end up. I feel like it's going to cause a lot of problems. Right? And we have 4 episodes left before the end of the series. So either the series will end with Tsubomi being like, sure, Mob, let's try it. Or it's going to end with her being like, no, I don't want to date you. And Mob has to, like, part of growing up is moving forward. So I don't know how that's going to go. So that's going to be a whole can of worms starting in the next episode. So I feel like this one here, this episode was the series going, okay, you're going to spend the rest of the season dealing with a whole lot of shit. So why don't we have this one wholesome, interesting, trippy, balls to the walls episode, and then we'll go from there, right? The animation style. Can we talk about the animation? Can we talk about that? Because it started out very normal. Like, it started out very normal up until after the OP. And then once they get out of the van and start to move around, and the animation style slowly, like, it slowly starts to turn. And I don't think that the reason for that, I don't think it's that the animation was outsourced. I don't think it's anything like that. I think it was a deliberate decision by Bones to do it that way. I'm curious to know why they chose to do it that way. I guess to add to the trippiness of it, but there are times where the animation seems more like the manga, and it's done that in the past. There was scenes, I think it was either season 1 or season 2, where Mob, it might have been at the end of season 1, where Mob and Reagan went like hunting for the weird ghost creature. It was like the snipe. It was like the weird rumored ghost creature. And the animation style was kind of like this, like they were experimenting with it. And then it wasn't like that for the rest of the episode, just for that one part. And I was like, oh, this is kind of like the manga, I guess, because I've seen panels from the manga and how it looks. So I'm curious if they just did it in that style so that they went to the ancient alien race later on, that it would match up better. I don't know. That's so bizarre. I want to go through that whole Inukawa's like harem story. We'll talk about it when we get to it. But it was a very interesting decision. I'm very curious in the comments what people are going to say as to the reason why this animation was like that. Like, if you've read any articles about it, or if Bones came out and said why they animated it that way, what's the reason behind it? I'm very curious, because it does look different. But there are parts of the episode, like the reflection on the glass when they're driving up the mountain, like the animation on the aliens. There's parts where the animation, like, it does a weird thing and it slows down, and then the parts where it speeds up and it's really fluid. Like, it was a very intentional decision. Like, I've seen anime where they've outsourced it to another company like Haikyuu or My Hero Academia, and the animation's not good, and you can tell, and you're like, oh, this was kind of subpar. Not the case with this. This episode was really good, but the animation like takes a turn that's different, and it never is explained, right? It's never explained. It just happens. And that's the one thing about Mob Psycho. Usually during fights and stuff, during the action scenes, the animation changes in weird ways. And it's kind of self-explanatory, because you're like, oh, well, because it's an action scene, it does this. But because there was relatively no action in this episode other than the UFO showing up and the aliens, then it's so bizarre, right? It's so bizarre. This episode was also very odd because the Inukawa thing in itself was just a bizarre thing. I had so many theories going into this, and then they end up not being true. But I was expecting certain things to happen with Tome and Takanaka, and it doesn't happen. And so I'm wondering if they're saving that. He's in the preview, so he's a recurring character. If they're going to save that for the last 4 episodes, what's going to happen with that? I'm so curious. But yeah, so let's talk about this. So I like that Tome, the entire time going up the mountain, like, she's very skeptical. Like Tome is not, she's never been a character in this series to display her emotions on her sleeve. She's very reserved. She keeps things close to the vest. And she's always been one that she like nags and stuff, but the inner emotions of Tome. Her inner self, she keeps relatively guarded, right? And so you can tell that she is kind of getting her hopes up, being like, oh, you guys are trying to make this a cool memory, but I'm not going to like give it away that I think that, right? Like she doesn't want to admit that. But what I really like is that she's just kind of like, keeping everything close to the vest, and Takanaka is trying to like, not let on that Takanaka was weird. Like he didn't want to read her thoughts till the very end, right? He didn't want to read her thoughts in front of her. And I'm like, if you're trying to prove you're a telepath to her, why don't you just say what you're thinking and she'll know, right? But he doesn't do it. And I feel like, again, I think he likes her and he doesn't want to like intrude her thoughts because he doesn't want to drive her away or make her like not like him. So that's interesting, right? It's at this weird age in adolescence where boys and girls and boys and boys and girls, everybody starts to act a little different around each other, especially if you're attracted to somebody. So that's interesting. I do like Reagan being like, I thought he was trying to take us as far as he could with the car. I like that with Reagan it says, licensed driver with little experience, 10 years. 10 years is still a pretty good amount of time of experience, but for Reagan, he's like, I've not been driving a lot. Because, yeah, he usually walks to work. He may have had his license for 10 years, but he's not been driving that long. So I love that Reagan tries to play it cool. Also, poor Mob. Mob throwing up because of the motion sickness is really sad. And I'm totally with Mob. When I was younger, like up until when I was in high school, I had really bad motion sickness. Like I read a lot in the car, and I think that was the problem, is I was reading so much that I wasn't looking up. But when I was a kid, I got sick in the car all the time. And then when I got older, I kind of got over it, right? But yeah, they pretty much established, because this road is like a one-way street, they're going to have to basically keep going forward until they get to a point where they can make a U-turn. I'm like, it's great. And then I like that she's like, well, we wouldn't have this problem about worrying about being too late up the mountain if you guys had been on time. And Inukawa tries like diffuse the situation, and she's like, I canceled my New Year's plans to come here, so I hope you're not mocking me. And I love Inukawa's like, the hell did you just say? Inukawa is becoming one of my favorites in this show, because he's just like, what did you just say to me? Like, we just try to do something nice to you and you're just taking it for granted. The little inner thoughts of Inukawa flashing along the screen, that was absolutely hilarious. And then poor Mob throwing up, like, bless his heart. So yeah, these aliens, all this, pretty crazy. So the problem with all of this, and I just paused it on a super freaky thing with Mob's face in the OP. The problem with all of this is that if Mob does get mad in the end, usually Dimple was the one to kind of bring him back to reality, and Dimple would be like, hey, Mob, it's okay. And Reagan's done that too, but Dimple, I feel, maybe has more experience knowing about, like, the ladies, even though he's a ghost. Reagan, I feel like, has no experience with women. I feel like Reagan and Sarazawa are the worst people to ask because they've had no experience with women, nor have they been eager to have experience with women. That's the thing. They don't really care. But, okay, encountering the unknown. So yeah, poor Mob with the sick bag. Again, I don't feel like this is all intentionally chosen by Bones, because like the focus in and out changes, everything. It's so bizarre, right? And Reagan's like, we'll just come back and get the car later. Like, nobody else is going to get on this road. It's fine. And he just, like, what was he examining the car for? Yeah, but they hit some bumps. Okay. And he says, thank goodness there's reception right here. And so Tome's not going to get out. I feel like, again, Tome, she's, like, afraid that this is all going to go awry and it's going to be a bad memory in the end, instead of being a good one. So she's afraid to make that memory. And then, yeah, like, Takanaka, like, the whole time is just kind of tracing the trails and everything. But again, I like that they just kind of wander around. And Reagan tries to mark the trees, but he doesn't do a good job. And so then they get lost. But yeah, the animation style is so interesting. And for a moment, I thought the animation style was because as they got more and more lost in the woods, the animation got just like wonkier and wonkier, like just kind of distorting and showing that emotion and that fear and kind of anxiety. I wondered if that was the reason why, because at this point in the episode, the animation is probably at its weirdest. And I feel like it was trying to convey that sense of being lost. I could be wrong. That was just my thoughts at this point in the episode. And then Tome doesn't want to go any further. Like, everybody's looking around and she's like, why are you guys trying to summon this UFO? Like, what's the deal? And they're like, and finally the older one is like, look, Inukawa and Saruta, they planned this whole thing out for you. Like, do you not get it? We drug you up to this mountain to make memories with you. We're doing this for you on New Year's. Like what part of that do you not get? And then she's like, well, why are you blaming me for not knowing? And she's like, I disbanded the telepathy club because all of you never tried to do anything. So why are you trying to make it up now? She's like, this isn't going to make up for anything. You told me you found a telepath, but you lied to me. Why are you trying to, like, get my hopes up? And I love that, like, she gets really emotional here. And, like, what are you guys trying to do? And I like that Reagan understands instantly. He's like, okay, we are dealing with teenagers. We're dealing with pre-adolescents. There's hormones, there's emotions raging everywhere. And Reagan is like an instant diffuser. He's like, let's not have anything like this get in the way, guys. So he's like, let's just go up to the top of the mountain. He's like, I heard if we go to the top of the mountain, it's safer than going back down the bottom in the dark. Let's just do that. And she says that she's leaving. But I love that she just like kind of like crouches down and it's Mob that puts his hand there and reaches out for her to come with him. And here's the thing, like, Tome, you know, she knows that the guys, they like to joke, and she doesn't know whether to take those guys seriously or not. But Mob is sincere, and Mob is kind. And she's like, if Mob's offering his hand out to help, she's like, she knows he's being genuine, and he's not joking. And so she actually takes his hand, and it's so sweet. I love the friendship that's between Mob and Tome. It's really, really cute. It's nice. And yeah, so they go on the bridge and everything. They go up this trail. There's all these animals everywhere. And then they talk about the UFOs showing up at 5 o'clock. And then apparently there's this book that had the ways that you contact UFOs, right? And they ask her, you know, did you forget the book? And she's like, oh, no. And they're like, well, don't you have all this stuff memorized? You like these aliens. You've wanted to summon them for years. Don't you know how it goes? And she's like, oh, well, no, I wouldn't have it memorized. Like, she's embarrassed, right? And which is so sad because I'm like, Tome's so passionate about it, but she thinks it's kind of silly now that they're there and they're actually ready to summon a UFO. She's like, oh, well, this is kind of silly. And it's Takanaka who remembers it. And he forms everything. And she tries to throw him off and be like, oh, well, the memories you made today are good enough. And then he's the one that memorized. And he's like blushing because he has the hand signal and everything. And they just say like gibberish, right? And he's like, you have to create an 8 with the rocks, setting a foot in either circle. He's like, I know you remember this. And he's like, I got serious researching all this. And before I knew it, it was morning. And then that's why he was like, oh, crud, I'm not ready to go. So we see his room. We see his room with like his bed, all of his stuff everywhere. It looks like he has a guitar. He has like the books and everything. And that's why he was in such a panic. He spent all night researching it. And then that's why he was late. I'm like, that's kind of love, isn't it? Isn't it though? That's kind of love. I kind of want Takanaka and Tome to get together. I would love them to date. I think that would be, because she's the telepath. I think that's so sweet. I kind of love that, actually. Oh. And he's like, I just wanted to figure out whatever I could do. And then that's when they all get together and they decide to summon the aliens. And he's like, well, come on, it's better to do this. We made it all this way. Let's just have some fun. And if it's a joke, then we had fun along the way. And we can laugh together about it. Ha ha ha. You know, if it ends up being something stupid, it's not going to be the end of the world. And he's like, you know, and the thing of it is that she's kind of like, they're like, could you believe in us already? And she's trying to like deny it. And then he says what she's thinking. And that's when he proves he's a telepath. I love this scene. This is probably my favorite part of the episode. Like the Inukawa fever dream that happens afterwards is absolutely insane. But this is my favorite part of the episode, is that he reads her mind. And he says, even then, I'm scared of this going wrong. It's probably better to limit this to chasing a fantasy. Like, it's not real. I love when she realizes that he can read her mind and they aren't lying. And he won't look her in the face because he's blushing like crazy. Maybe all that matters in this is whether we had fun. I love that. And then he looks over, because my other memories with everyone may end up a joke too. Like, all her insecurities are right there, right? I love it. And then Inukawa and them were like, oh my gosh, we almost got lost in the mountains because I'm forcing my delusions on them. Like, she's blaming herself. And I don't want to face reality any more than this, apparently. I love it. And everybody's like, and I love that they're all like, well, you're not forcing a delusion. Like, they instantly defend her. They're like, what? Come on. And I love at that moment she realizes that they're like, this is something we wanted to do before the telepathy club disbands. I love it. And she's like, then you should have said so earlier. God, I love it. And they're like, we can't catch a break with you, Tome. I love it. I love these boys. It's like, boys, you don't know how ladies work. And then they're all going to do this. I love it. I love that Tome, she realizes that she shouldn't be putting her insecurities on them. As Huckleberry's like, trying to give me this toy. But that they should have told her all along. But that I love that she's just like, these guys are doing this for me. It's so good. It's so good. And so, yeah, then they do the rocks and everything. I like that Reagan's not involving himself in this. He's like, no, someone has to watch out for these kids. And then I like that now, here's the thing. Reagan asks him if he found out anything else. I wonder if Reagan had also found out that this guy was a fraud, because he would be into this stuff too. And I like they ask him if he's a telepathist, and he's like, no, I just can sense aura. And Takanaka kind of like explains like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Most people can do that on their own anyway without any powers. You know, you just have to have really good perception. He's the guy that's a total liar, but is good at reading people through their action and mannerisms. Yes, that is Reagan to a T. Glad Takanaka figured it out within 5 minutes. Right? And so then he shows up. It turns out that the book is a fraud. There's no basis to the research. He just didn't want to tell her because he didn't want her to feel bad that she'd put all her faith in something that wasn't true. That's really sweet. Like, I love it. And I love the idea that they wanted just the telepathy club to work together, right? And Reagan's like, look, whether it worked or not, you guys are going to think back on this day and remember this for the rest of your life. Inukawa definitely will be. But the whole alien thing was so weird, right? Like, I love that Mob uses his telepathy, or not his telepathy, he uses his psychic powers to, like, make everything go up in the air. It's so pretty. And, like, they have the big fountains and everything of light, and it actually attracts aliens. It's great. And then they all show up. And the aliens, I like that it says an unidentified flying object actually existed. And then it's one of those things like where you meet a celebrity that you've been waiting to meet for a long time and you don't know what to say. Like, I had a friend that had a musician they were in love with. They thought they were the best musician in the world. And then they finally got to meet them and they had all these questions lined up. And then when they finally met them, they were just like, and they just cried. They didn't have anything that they could say to that person that they'd wanted to convey all these years. But they were just tongue-tied and they were so starstruck. And I love that Tome has spent all this time and then she can't think of anything to say. But yeah, the aliens showing up. I can't believe that aliens actually showed up. And I want to make note, the face that Mob and Reagan have, they both look so skeptical. It's absolutely hilarious. I've never seen Mob look skeptical before, but he looks skeptical in that moment, and it's absolutely hilarious. I freaking love it. What can we do? What can we do? So yeah, and then these aliens, they look like something I would have drawn in grade school. They have the big Sailor Moon eyes. They have the Sailor Moon eyes. They're like celestial. They look like they have the stars in them. And they try to like communicate with them. And what's really cool is that it actually turns out that they're totally harmless. It's just like, I like that Reagan's like, I went on this New Year's trip thinking I was going to babysit some kids. And I'm going on an unidentified flying object. Okay. But I like that they're just like, The aliens are no different than the humans. They just have their own like party room and they're just chilling out, just playing games and eating food and doing nothing crazy. And they all just kind of like hang out. It's just this big gathering. It's like the most wholesome thing in the world. Like, you think aliens, you think it's going to be this big dramatic show. The sad thing is that the aliens we finally meet are the most chill, normal thing in the world. And Suzuki, who's like a human, is the most terrifying thing we faced so far. And that wasn't an alien at all. So, I mean, I feel like that's one making a statement that we're like our own worst enemies and the rest of the world out there doesn't care. So I feel like that's a statement that one's making. It's probably correct. But yeah, they just play cards. And I like that the aliens can't communicate, but they somehow know how to play cards. I guess Mob's showing them how and explaining it. They do arm wrestling. Inukawa hits it off with the one alien and Takanaka's just sitting there like, dude. It's great. And then yeah, everything's wonderful. And I like that Reagan's whole thing is he's like, it's New Year's. And he's like, all this stuff is going on. And all I can think about is the fact that I'm going to pay late fees on a rental car. The adult of all adults, right? Just chilling out. It's like they're blinding. That's so cool. And then that's when they all realize they've got to head home soon. And so yeah, Inukawa's like playing with all them. Again, the animation is so weird at times. But they give them this special stone as a gift, right? And then they all decide to give something in return. And Tome gives her scarf. Takanaka gives his watch. The one guy gives his notebook. Sarada gives like his gum. Mob gives some of their powers and shows them. And then like Inukawa gives the dang video game system to them. He clearly gives the best gift. And then I like Reagan is like stripping off his pajamas. The way they animated him is really cute. I'm going to show it. And Tomei's like, why are you stripping? And he's like, well, I have my pajamas on under my suit. Like a crazy... No wonder he was sweating when he got there. No wonder he was sweating when he showed up at the van. He had a sweatshirt, then his suit jacket, a tie, and then a coat and scarf over it. No wonder. He was like, I was in a hurry, so I was wearing my pajamas underneath. And so here, you get to have that. The animation's so fluid here, though. It's kind of crazy. And then anything goes. And so they all... I love that Tome gives the alien a hug. Like, that's really cute. I kind of love that. I love that Tome gets to live her dream. The one memory she wanted to make. And she's like, I'll never forget this. My thing is, I wonder if the aliens made them forget, like Inukawa did. Or if they all went on their own journey with the aliens. Or if it was just Inukawa. Or if they all remember the aliens and Inukawa's the only one that's forgotten. Interesting. I don't know what the answer is. But yeah. And then I like the ones just wearing Reagan's pajama shirt. It's really funny. And she's like, we'll meet again someday. And then yeah, I love they have the memo pad and the gum. It's so cute. And then they go. The first sunrise of the year. And then they're like, wait, where's Inukawa? And he ends up stuck with the aliens. The thing about it is that I feel like this was a bonus chapter in the manga. I feel like it was like a bonus chapter and they were like, we've got, I don't know how many minutes they have left. They're like, we have like 3 minutes left. Let's just animate it. Let's just do it. Let's just do it because why not? But the animation of when he picks up like the rock to write with, that animation of him picking it up is so fluid and beautiful. And I feel like this whole episode, Bones was just experimenting. Like, what can we do? Right? And he picks it up. And the animation from here on in with Inukawa is freaking gorgeous. Like, what they were just saving their budget for this last 3 minutes. They were like, let's do this. But yeah, he was taken by the UFO to all these strange planets with all this stuff happening. Like, it's gorgeous. He's like, I've been trying to convince them to take me back to Earth, but they haven't. But I can't communicate with them. And like, so he's writing down in the journal, it's going to be a long drawn out battle. Okay, so it says, Earth, New Year's Eve, 2011 something. I was taken away by a UFO. I can't communicate with them because they're aliens. They don't seem to have any ill will, though. They don't, right? I'm sure this is all some sort of misunderstanding. This is a misunderstanding, right? Please let me go back to Earth. I'm going to try to convince them, but this is probably going to be a long, drawn-out battle. I think I'm going to keep writing down my progress in this notebook. Okay. Yeah, I like that he's like, right? And then there's this big concert festival, and they're all like at a dance party, and they make him like eat something. But here's the thing, it's all like LSD, and it like trips him out. Like he eats, like what is this animation? Like it's just crazy. He's like, he chooses to eat like the one thing that looks like a mushroom, and they're like, oh my gosh. And he says, my memories are foggy after that. And then he just like goes crazy, like gets naked, and like starts dancing around naked on the stage. Oh my God. And then wakes up, and these girls have like made out with him, like all over him. I'm like, so he basically got assaulted by aliens. Poor Inukawa. Oh my God. He like basically just like got assaulted by all these alien girls. Like Inukawa had an adventure, y'all. Had an adventure. But he wanted to go home. And then yeah, like the animation, everything gets crazy. And the inhabitants of the planet have this natural enemy. But he notes it was the size of his dog. He never thought about using weapons. And he like kicks it, right? And he says, I took care of the pest for them. And then he looks down, he's like, ended up thinking it was the size of the dog I have back home. Huh. And then like he ends up on the bed, they like cheer for him. And then he gets like snuggled up next to the queen. It's like, and Olivia's just like, what the hell? What is happening? I'm just like, and the frame rate, like it gets a little bit more narrow as it goes. I'm like, what the hell, Inukawa? What an adventure he's had. And then he's like the local hero for slaying the monster, and they treat him like a hero. And then he gets all like the food and everything. And they don't, do they show his eyes after that, after he like eats the food and stuff? They all have sweaters that look like Reagan's pajamas. It's hilarious. And then he like has the same t-shirt on that they do. He says, I have no idea how much time has passed. And he sets the video game down. Yeah, we don't see his eyes. But then the queen comes and reads it. And then he says, I have something to tell you. Uh-huh. And then he's able to communicate with them, right? But it shows like the dust bunnies and stuff, the pests or whatever. The pests or whatever, they suddenly are all over the planet. So what? And then he says, on the brink of loneliness, he was able to link his thoughts with the aliens and tell them to take him home. They wanted to go back home to Earth. And yeah, and it shows he has the same eyes as they do. Like, what the fudge? And then from there it says, like it's going through all the planets. If you have something you want to say, just look them in the eyes. And you'll be able to get through to them. I feel like that's a message for Mob and the rest of the season, because Mob's whole thing is like he's always been like kind of socially awkward up until this last season and a half. Like halfway through season 2, he really came into a groove. So I feel like that is something it's setting up for Mob to do with Tsubomi. Be like, look, if you want to talk to her, look her in the eyes and just tell her and link up your thoughts, right? And Tsubomi kind of has like the big Sailor Moon eyes like the aliens too, right? Maybe Tsubomi's an alien this whole time. She'll end up being an alien and flying back in her rocket ship. What if that was a thing? What if it was a thing? Right? But yeah, I feel like it's a thing being like, Mob, just look her in the eyes and tell her how you feel. And you'll be able to communicate your thoughts. And it says, Inukawa realized this, but by the time he got back to Earth, his memories had become fuzzy and vague. So I wonder if he, and then it shows the alien swinging on the swing on the satellite dish. I wonder if Inukawa will end up being the one to talk to Mob and give him advice on Tsubomi. I wonder if that's the reason for this episode with the aliens. He's going to end up being the one to give Mob advice to move forward. Maybe? Maybe? I don't know. I don't know if that'll end up being the case. I don't know, y'all. Maybe, possibly, who knows? This episode was so crazy. I don't know how else to describe it. But what a trip. What a trip, y'all. Oh my gosh. What a funky episode. Rule of 8. It's always going to be a weird, interesting, great episode. I did not expect that we would go on a entire series arc journey with Inukawa in 3 minutes, but we did. It's a shame he doesn't remember it. Damn it. Maybe he'll remember enough to tell Mob later, and it'll all wrap back around and have significance in that realm. But yeah. So we did see the preview for episode 9. So Tsubomi's moving. Oh God, Mob's gonna have a panic attack. And I'm not going to rewatch the preview again, though, because I feel like I wouldn't have watched it originally if I hadn't thought, I didn't know when that was going to end, the episode itself. So we'll just see what ends up happening, right? Oh, God. So I'm very curious to know your thoughts about this episode, why you think it was animated the way that it was, about the contents of it, about Inukawa's journey. What were your thoughts on that? And I'm very curious to hear your thoughts down below. What do we do? So, in any case, I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon to talk about episode 9 of Mob Psycho Season 3.